Hello, BookTube. I've got some mail for you today on a dismal, rainy day. It is a dismal, rainy Thursday. Uh, as you can tell, herself is totally deflated because her mortal enemy is in possession of the field. It's one of those days where it's not windy and it's not chilly, and the rain isn't so much falling as it is just seeping everywhere. So when you're walking out in it, we were walking out in it an hour ago, and it wasn't falling on either one of us. But by the time we got back, we were drenched, and that was even a short walk. But nevertheless, mail comes through. So I have some packages here and one periodical, and the periodical is a little bit of PTSD, a little bit of post-traumatic Steve Donoghue, because this is the New Yorker. And those of you who watch my videos all the time, you poor unmedicated creatures, will remember that the last issue of the New Yorker traumatized poor Steve. It had one thing after another in it that I did not understand or that was contrary to observable reality or common sense. And this one I thought was going to be the same because the cover of the New Yorker in this issue is drawn by a small child with not much in the way of talent. I remember when the cover spot for the New Yorker was coveted, but there was one piece in here. There is a two-movie review by Anthony Lane that once again I will not be reading. I don't want to be. He's a pornographer, and I don't want to be surprised by pornography where I don't expect to find it. Why he still has his job with the New Yorker, I do not know. Not a question of him not having the right political opinions, as we will see. But just for the sake of the New Yorker's readers who, like me, don't want to encounter sordid pornography in a review of a children's movie. We did, the fact that you, as the New Yorker's movie critic, have been at your job so long that you are so bored and so cynical that you think that's a way for you to liven up a piece, means that you need to leave the New Yorker. It doesn't mean that the rest of us have to adapt to your warped tastes. But that's connected in a way to the best piece in this issue, which is a book review. It's a two-book review by Becca Rothfeld, whose name is familiar to me, but I am definitely going to be watching for her work now because this is a terrific piece. I want to read you the beginning and the end of it. It's about two books about social media shaming and cancellation and cancel culture. It's about two books on that subject which take radically different approaches. And the piece starts off by recounting something that some of you may remember, a kind of example of cancel culture. In 2013, when people still nursed high hopes for the salvific effects of the internet, and cancellation was a fate reserved for poorly rated TV shows, a private citizen with 170 Twitter followers was loitering in Heathrow Airport waiting for a flight to Cape Town. Going to Africa, she dashed off before boarding. Hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white. By the time she landed, 11 hours later, her ill-advised missive had gone disastrously viral. She stumbled off the plane to discover that a multitude of online detractors had weighed in on her character. Now she was a globally known racist. The woman, Justine Sacco, was one of the first high-profile casualties of the public shaming of the digital era, and she suffered all the consequences that have since become routine: job loss, wide-scale condemnation, and a public identity subsumed by a very public sin. Still, in the wake of subsequent disasters, her story seems almost quaint. How pleasant it is to recall a simpler, kindler time when an online mobbing was an occurrence so unusual that it merited 2 articles in the New York Times. I remember that incident well, and I want to point out something that Rebecca Rothfeld doesn't point out strongly enough. She gets to it in her next 2 paragraphs, but I think it should have been right up there in front. I want to point out the Justine Sacco reminder that we should all remember, which was that she was completely innocent. She was completely innocent. Her tweet was sarcasm about racial indifference. It was not racial indifference itself. It was not racist. In other words, she had a well-documented history of progressive causes, a well-documented history of being on the right side of history. She has a well-documented history. She has a well-documented history of not being a racist. Her tweet was blithe to point a jagged sense of satire at the indifference of the fact of the racial disparities in Africa, of who gets AIDS and who doesn't. In other words, yes, she suffered all of the consequences that have since become routine: job loss, wide-scale condemnation, total and permanent association with one social media utterance. But there's one other aspect of most online cancellations that I have seen that also applies here, which is that it was wrong. In addition to all the other things that happened, it was also unjust. Her tweet was not racist. So it was not only a storm of social media condemnation, but it was a storm over nothing. Becca Rothfeld does make that point throughout the piece, and she goes on to talk about the two books. But I want to read you how she finishes up here and see what you think of this. Let's see here. Where should I start? Well, let's just read the last paragraph here. Cavalier witnesses of online shamings have been known to recommend that their targets just log off and resume existence IRL, in real life. But logging off and returning to the sphere in which people are apt to forgive one another for venial affronts is no longer an option. Reality is less real than the internet, where jobs are lost and lives are ruined in just a few clicks. There is no off left. Pretty good piece. I haven't actually yet read either of the books. That I suppose I should tell you which books she's talking about here. I haven't yet read either one of them, but problem with the New Yorker critic at large or their books coverage is that they're still hidebound by century-old in-house policies, so they bury the lead. They don't put any header material up front. You have to dig around in the piece to find out what book is being reviewed. Sometimes thousands of words before you get to it. The two books are How to Do Things with Emotions by Owen Flanagan and The Shame Machine by Kathy O'Neill. And it's a good piece. It makes you think about online cancellation and how it works and how it doesn't. So that was the magazine, and it wasn't traumatic this time around. And then we have packages. So let's see what we have here. I don't want to block my poor waterlogged bean. We were outside. She did not object. The rain's not coming down. It's in the air. It's suffusing everything. But it's only when it's coming down that we get to the back door, and she just says, no, no, don't make me do this. Please don't. She looks up at me in such a pleading way that I usually just give in. But it wasn't happening this time around, so we just launched off, and it was only 15 minutes later that we both realized that we were soaked, and neither one of us particularly enjoyed that. But you know what they say, March showers bring April heat waves. Isn't that how the old saying goes? But anyway, what do we got here? So we have a finished copy from Minotaur Books. This comes out at the very end of the month. So if it's Minotaur Books, it might be a mystery novel, and that is still time for March Mystery Madness. So we have The Echoes by Jess Montgomery. What have we got here? This is the fourth in her evocative Kinship series, which combines exquisite storytelling with extraordinary crime plotting in Ohio's Appalachian Territory. As July 4th, 1928 approaches, Sheriff Lily Ross and her family look forward to the opening of an amusement park in a nearby town created by Chalmer Fitzpatrick, a veteran lumber mill owner and county commissioner. Oh, he's not just a veteran lumber mill owner. He's also a veteran and a lumber mill owner. When Lily is alerted to the possible drowning of a girl, she goes to investigate and discovers schisms going back several generations in an ongoing dispute over the land on which Fitzpatrick has built the park. 1928 Ohio Appalachians, and we have a female sheriff who no doubt punches out men in this book. Lily's family life is soon rattled too, with the revelation that before he died, her brother had a daughter, Esme, with a woman in France, and arrangements have been made for Esme to immigrate to the United States and live with them. But Esme never makes it to Kinship, and soon Lily discovers that she has been kidnapped. Not only that, but a young woman is indeed found murdered in the fishing pond on Fitzpatrick's property at the same time that a baby is left on his doorstep. Right, lots and lots of stuff going on in this thing, which comes out on March 29th and stars a female sheriff in the Ohio Appalachian Territory in 1928. Okay, so a not statistically impossible chance that I am going to be lectured in this book. I'm already suspending disbelief almost as much as I would be if Kinship, Ohio had faster than light drive. But in addition to that, well, we shall see. We shall see. I don't recall this series, do I? Have I got other books in this series? The Stills would have been one of the earlier ones. Have I had books in this series, or have you read any books in this series? It still counts for March Mystery Madness. Then we have a tiny little package here. Could be another slim volume of poetry. Could be that the publishing world has clued into the fact that I'm reading poetry to you every day. Let's see what we have here. Oh, no, it's not. It's a work of prose. Although, you flip through a lot of modern poetry and it's also a work of prose, so there's no way to know. This is a translated work from Verso Press. This is The Disappearance of Josef Mengele by Olivier Guez, translated by Georgia de Cambrai. Very boring cover. I don't know if it'll look like that in the finished copy. This comes out in... Okay, you're going to help me here? August. This comes out in August. So what have we got here? We'll have to just read from the book. For 3 decades, until the day he collapsed in the Brazilian surf in 1979, Mengele, the angel of death who performed horrific experiments on the prisoners at Auschwitz, floated through South America in linen suits, keeping 2 steps ahead of Mossad agents, international police, and world's journalists. In this rigorously researched factual novel, drawn almost entirely from historical documents, the author traces Mengele's footsteps through these years of flight. Ooh, that sounds good. This chilling novel situates the reader in a literary manhunt on the trail of one of the most elusive and evil figures of the 20th century. Okay, well, this doesn't come out until late August, but I'm kind of curious. It comes out on August 9th, 2022, which is the anniversary of the day that Harry Truman bombed Nagasaki, is it not? So who is the author? The author of several books. Have any of them translated into English? Yeah, it looks like some of them have. In 2016, he received the German Best Screenplay Award for the film Fritz Bauer, A German Hero. Okay. Safe to assume I have not read this author. Okay, great. So I'm all up for it. One of my favorite books of the year so far is a work of translation. So, and Mengele is fascinating. I've read a number of books about him. Sort of that can't look away fascination that you get, including what's his name, Clifton's book, The Nazi Doctors, which is spellbindingly horrifying, just spellbindingly. Okay, this next one is a novel. We have no information on it. This is by Wesley Stratton, and it is The Bartender's Cure, and it comes out in June. The Bartender's Cure. I don't have anything, no sheet, so we'll just read from this. Oh, no we won't. No we won't. The back is all blurbs. Okay, do we have any copy on the inside? Yes, we do. Okay. Samantha Fisher definitely does not want to be a bartender. But after a breakup and a breakdown in San Francisco, she decides to defer law school for a year to move to New York, crashing on her best friend's couch. When she is offered a job at Joe's Apothecary, I don't know why that threw me, a beloved neighborhood bar in Brooklyn, she tells herself it's only temporary. As Sam learns more about bartending and getting to know the service industry, lifers, and loyal regulars at Joe's, she is increasingly seduced by her new job. She finds acceptance in her tight-knit community and even begins a new relationship. But as the year draws to a close, Sam is increasingly pulled between the life she thought she wanted and the possibility of a different kind of future. When destructive cycles from her past threaten to consume her again, Sam must decide how much she's willing to let go of to finally belong. Okay. Well, I've known people in this exact, I know this is fiction, but I've known people in this exact situation. And it's not a community that they have found in the little bar where they start to work. They might tell themselves that that's the case, but it's not. It's the dual addictions of alcohol and tobacco that they have found. Okay, well, this is a debut by Wesley Stratton. Can I assume that this is a absolute one-to-one correspondence with the author's own life? Let's find out. Wesley Stratton is a writer and bartender based in Brooklyn. All right. She studied fiction at Brooklyn College, where she received the Hyman Brown Creative Writing Award and served as an editor for the Brooklyn Review. And this is her debut novel. Okay, so this is autofiction, almost I would bet almost exactly this is autofiction, and that is a bit of a problem because I'm going to have to do a whole video on autofiction since it's the only thing that publishers write anymore. It's the only thing that they print anymore is autofiction. So with the exception, I guess, of the 2 books that I read this year so far that knocked my socks off, both of which were not autofiction. But other than that, this comes out in June, so we've got a lot of summer releases here. But I'm definitely going to have to. I mean, it could still be good. I've read some autofiction that was, but I'm going to have to set some thoughts down on paper about autofiction. That's what this channel's for. So let's move on to this next one, which is also a finished copy. What have we got? Oh, great. Oh, fantastic. All right. Again, no sheet, but that's all right. This is a work of history. I think this comes out in April. This is by Robert Kaplan, and it is Adriatic, a concert of civilizations at the end of the modern age. So this is a book about the Adriatic, and it says blurbs from previous works, and one blurb for this work by Peter Frankopan, who did the new Silk Roads. I don't have a sheet, but we can read from the book. I'm pretty sure that this is either out already, or is coming out in early April. In this insightful geopolitical travel log, the author turns his perceptive eye to a region that for centuries has been a meeting point of culture, trade, and ideas. He undertakes a journey around the Adriatic Sea, through Italy, Slovenia, Croatia, Montenegro, Albania, and Greece, to reveal that far more is happening in the region than most news stories let on. Often overlooked, the Adriatic is in fact at the center of the most significant challenges of our time. No, it's not. I'm perfectly willing to have your head of steam in your own publicity material, but no, it's not. Including the rise of populist politics, the refugee crisis, the battles over the control of energy resources. And it is once again becoming a global trading hub that will determine Europe's relationship with the rest of the world as China and Russia compete for dominance in its ports. The author explores how the region has changed over his 3 decades of observing it as a journalist. Oh, that sounds fascinating. That sounds fascinating. He finds that to understand both the historical and contemporary Adriatic is to gain a window on the future of Europe as a whole, and he unearthed a stark truth. The era of populism is an epiphenomenon, a system of an age of nationalism coming to an end. Well, of course I want to know if any of you live in any of those countries, all right? Am I being watched in any of those countries right now? That would be fascinating. But I need to, this doesn't have a sheet, I need to find when this is coming out and put a little slip of paper in there to let me know. We are in, we're in the last week of the month, so I need to rearrange my books. Always a melancholy thing. Not only is it a little bit exhausting, but it's melancholy because I used to arrange to have bookish guests here who would help me do that, so that we would take all the books off, sort through them all, arrange them, move them up. The top shelf has to be April books. And then everything else has to move up as well and be sorted and whatnot. And that was a lot of fun. In previous years, when there are hundreds more books than there are now, that was a lot of fun. It's still fun now. It's a whole bookcase of books. But now I have to do it by myself with just Frida watching and wondering what the heck I'm doing. but I'm going to need to do that, and I'm going to have to make sure that there are dates on all of these things when I do that. So let's see what this next one is. It's a priority mail envelope, but it has a printed sticker on it, so I don't think it's one of you violating rule number 1. Let's see here. Yes, okay, this is a book from a publisher. Okay. So what have we got here? This comes out in May. This is a May release. This will fill out the May shelf. I don't want to block the beam. This is Down to the River by Anne Whitney Pierce. What have we got here? A family with a history as deep and murky as the Charles River that cuts through Cambridge and Boston is tested by the upheavals of the 1960s in Anne Whitney Pierce's intergenerational saga Down to the River, which comes out in early May, and which is yet another, do I need to hear more than that? I think this is probably another foray into autofiction. Let's see here. Remy and Nash Potts are identical twin heirs of the Boston Brahmin elite who were promised the good life, Harvard, wealth, and guaranteed privilege. But as their family fortune dwindles, they are failing as husbands, fathers, and men in a changing world. That sounds good. Uh, let's see here. Now middle-aged, the former Golden Boys are partners in a sporting goods store and are taking their dissatisfaction out on those closest to them. Heavy drinking, affairs, and abusive behaviors are shattering their marriages and shaking loose the family ties that connect them to their children. Two of the offspring, known as Chickie and Hen, burst free into the kaleidoscopic melee that is Harvard Square at the height of the Vietnam era. Kaleidoscopic melee. One phrase for it. Yes, indeed. Certainly good eating. Lots and lots of good eating. And where you didn't expect to have to take out a second mortgage on your house to have a meal. You know, let's go and get a great big lunch. Steak, potatoes, all of the fixings for $2, $2.50, something like that. Anyway, as they cling together for comfort and support, they are pulled by the Cambridge undertow as politics, sex, drugs, and rock and roll sound their siren call. Their struggles are deeply relevant today. Abortion, substance abuse, family dysfunction, racial tension, bomb threats, and public protest. As family love and loyalty is sorely tested, Nash and Remy must come to grips with their behavior, while their wives confront their own trauma that they have passed on to their youngest generation. This book shows the dissolution of a way of life that is fading into extinction, yet has had a powerful influence on the shaping of our culture and country. What way of life would that be, I wonder? Nash and Remy's way of life, I'm assuming. That old world privilege, old world Boston privilege. Featuring a city so storied and distinct it becomes a living, breathing character. But which city? Is it Boston or is it Cambridge? I guess I'll have to read it and find out. The perfect setting for what happens when families must find the strength to stand together or forever be swept apart. I'm assuming the city is Cambridge, not Boston. But I am also assuming that this is autofiction. Let's see. What do we know about the author? Anne Whitney Pierce is a lifelong Canterburyan. Yes, okay, so she's... okay. Let's see here. While raising her three daughters, she taught writing at the WLP program, a graduate writing program at Emerson College in Boston, and to younger students in the Cambridge public schools. Interesting. Okay. So this will come out as a $20 paperback in early May. I'll have to come to grips with this then. I've got a little bit too much in the way between now and then to do this in March, but probably sometime in mid-April. And then we have yet another priority mail envelope. But again, I don't think... Well, let's take a look. Oh, no, it's not from one of you. No, it's not indeed. Good. Excellent. This is from an editor. Always nice to get a book in the mail from an editor whose checks don't bounce. Always nice. So what have we got here? Okay, this is comes to me from my editor at the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, so I will be reviewing this book for the paper. This is Blood Pudding by Ivan Cox. It's a novel. The cover says, Confessions of an Immigrant Boy, Pittsburgh, 1920. So yet more autofiction. That seems unbelievable, but I can't help but think that, oh, well, this doesn't have anything in it at all. Nothing. No sheet of any kind, and the only thing on the back is a quote from the book, which is going to be a $23 paperback. Probably now. It's probably out already. So, okay. There's a note to the reader at the beginning, I assume from the main character of the book, Tadeusz Malinowski. When my father died 30 years ago, we found this typewritten document under some stock certificates in his safe deposit box. Clipped to it was a note asking that nobody read it until 2020, 100 years after his mother's death. I offer this personal time capsule now so that my father's sufferings and triumphs as an immigrant boy in Pittsburgh should be known. I suspect there are many children of immigrants to America who share a similarly gritty but ennobling legacy. Okay, that sounds a lot like the author, not a character in the book. Okay, well, no, the author is a fixture at the Vineyard. Great, okay. Well, this is Fulton Books. I must say, Fulton Books does a pretty good job putting a book together. That looks good. Blood Pudding. Okay, so an immigrant story in Pittsburgh 100 years ago. I never know what I'm going to get. on this channel, and this goes right to the top of the pile because I'm responsible for this. So I will get to reading this today. So we have Blood Pudding by Ivan Cox, a novel about the immigrant experience in 1920s Pittsburgh. Then we have Down to the River by Anne Whitney Pierce. The river being the Charles, which runs between Boston and Cambridge, and there's one of the bridges that I know quite well. Then The Adriatic by Robert Kaplan, famous author, writing about a pivotal period, a pivotal place in the world, and it sounds like also making a long-term prediction about what's going on in the world. We shall see. I will get a date on this thing. This might be the other thing that I read tonight. Then The Bartender's Cure by Wesley Stratton. The Disappearance of Josef Mengele, work in translation, that is a fact-based novel. Don't know if the author thinks that's going to excuse him. It is certainly not going to excuse him. If it's a novel, then it must be a novel. If it's a bad novel, I don't care how well researched it is, so we shall see. And finally, The Echoes by Jess Montgomery, latest book in a series, also set in the 1920s. So not a bad mixture there. Always a delightfully pleasant thing when a mail haul includes a bit of commissioned work. That's always very nice. So I'm gonna wrap this up for now. This has gone on quite long enough, and I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.